Hi, my name is Taylor Rich, and today I'm here to talk to you about authorship speeches. So what's an authorship speech? An authorship speech is always the first speech given on your piece of legislation that you write before the tournament. To actually be able to get an authorship speech, you have to write up your own legislation and send it to the tournament director weeks before the tournament begins. So what this means is that your authorship speech needs to be pre-prepared. You can't necessarily write your authorship the day or two before the tournament starts. That's not really a formula for success. You have weeks to prepare this speech. So in my opinion, I think an authorship speech should be memorized. Because you have so long to prepare, and if your speech is memorized, you come off as a lot more confident. And when you don't have a legal pad to look down at, you have a lot more opportunities to create eye contact with your colleagues and your judges, and you have a lot more focus being put into your actual delivery. And that's always a good thing. So there's somewhat of a stigma in the status quo against authorship speeches because they're not chock full of refutation and argumentation. However, personally, I love authorship speeches. Actually, last season, a majority of the tournaments I went to, I submitted legislation and I gave authorship speeches. Authorship speeches are significant and they're so important because what they do is they create the debate. Now, once you give an authorship speech, you're not necessarily out of it. Every speaker is going to come up there and they're going to bring your name up and they're going to refute your arguments, so your name is still going to be heard. Even if you're in last cycle and your speech was given first, you're still going to be mentioned, so there's no need to worry. Authorship speeches are very important. You're creating the debate and you're starting off the issue. But how exactly do you do that? Now we're going to delve into what an authorship speech should actually contain and what the goals are that an authorship speech needs to fulfill. An authorship speech is supposed to be very constructive. It's supposed to give your judges and the audience a really good understanding of the issue at hand. The structure that I like to follow for authorship speeches goes problem, solution, and then impact. First, you need to explain the problem of the status quo. What's happening right now, and what's the issue that desperately needs to be fixed? Why you're introducing your own legislation. Next, you're going to move on to the solution. Why your legislation fixes the problem and how it does so. And then you're going to move on to what I think is the most important part, the impact. What's going to happen after this chamber passes your legislation? What's an affirmative world going to look like? What's it going to look like if we fail this legislation? What are the consequences of that? Why is passing your legislation ideal? And what impact is that going to have on the people? That's what it always needs to be tied back to. Now, your authorship speech definitely should do is provide clarity. Just know that your judges sitting in the back of the room most likely aren't going to have a copy of your legislation right in front of them. So what you need to do is you need to explain your legislation. You need to explain exactly what it's doing, because you can get up there and be like, now my legislation is going to fix this. But your judges aren't really going to know how, because you're not really explaining how it's going to do that. They don't have your legislation in front of them. So what you need to do is explain it. Now, especially if your legislation is on a complicated or complex issue, something like finance, for example, you need to break that down into simpler terms so that your judges and your colleagues can actually understand the issue. An authorship speech isn't meant to be some complex thing. It's meant to be simple. Now, something that I feel is very important that every authorship speech should have is passion. This is a speech on legislation that you wrote. So the topic that you select, which is going to be covered in the topic selection video, should be something that you care about and an issue that you really want to see change. Therefore, you should be passionate about it. The best speeches that you come across are going to be delivered by speakers that care about the issue at hand and they really want to see it solved. And you can tell that through their delivery, through the passion that they have for their legislation and to solve the issue. You need to have that same passion in round, because when you do, that's going to be conceived very well by your judges and by your whole chamber. So I hope that I've covered everything that I needed to about authorship speeches, but if there's anything that I missed or you have any questions or concerns about authorship speeches or anything that I've said in this video, please don't hesitate to contact me, either through Facebook or through my email. I'm always here to help you. Attached to this video, I'm also going to provide a link to a piece of legislation and the authorship speech that was given off of that legislation, just so you can get a glimpse into a real example of an authorship speech and what exactly it should contain and what it should cover. So thank you for watching. I wish all of you luck in your future endeavors next year, and I strongly encourage all of you to submit legislation to tournaments and deliver authorship speeches because they're a great experience. So thank you for watching.